accountability and defending your rights against the police specifically, and the government generally, are difficult and dangerous tasks. Your right to watch the government and record what you see is a natural right that is protected by the Constitution, and it cannot be taken away by the government.
Back in February of 2019, there was an arrest in Spokane that involved the use of force. There were multiple Spokane order followers involved in the incident, but the actions and words of the Spokane Blue Line are what stands out. During the incident, officers were trying to apprehend someone they thought was armed with a handgun. Things got tense and a canine was even deployed. The incident was later reported to the Spokane Police Ombudsman, and an internal investigation was started regarding the use of force. What created the controversy and brought this story to the public view was upon requesting the Bodycam footage, the city council was told if they wanted to view the footage, they would have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Thankfully, none of them did. Before I show you the footage, I want to explain where this story is going. My focus in this story isn't the use of force itself, although I do have issues with it. After the Spokane police released the footage to the public and responded to it, I couldn't understand why there wasn't more outrage. Now keep in mind, what we have going on is armed enforcement agents of the state yelling commands, trying to intimidate and coerce their adversaries to the will of the ruling class. All of their commands are backed by the threat of violence, torture, and possibly even lethal force for non-compliance. One of the order followers yells at the suspect, "I'm gonna effing shoot you." The part that completely stumps me is he claims that this is a de-escalation technique. And to make it even worse, everyone just seems to be okay with it. That's why in this story, I'm focusing on how the police department uses its highly trained public relations staff to release information in a way that helps them control the reaction and the story itself. The processes we've created to keep our rulers transparent and in check don't work very well when we give government control of the process. They manipulate the emotions of the public at large through subtle propaganda and cooperate on their own terms, releasing information because it fits their PR campaign, also known as a marketing plan, to lessen the negative impact.
We're at Carnahan and 4th, trying to pin him in. He's in a car smoking. Need some cars here as soon as we can get him. Get back! Does anybody know where that's at? Get on the other side, Scott.
No.
I will fucking kill you.
If you don't,
do you understand me?
I got a
You're
pistol.
done.
I got a pistol.
You're fucking done. He's got a gun.
Oh my hand!
He's got a gun on me, Simmons. Don't fucking move. Scott, get my dog. You're gonna get bit right now. Get the fuck out of here. I'm gonna put a bullet in your brain.
Smoke this cigarette.
Get out of here right now. I'm done fucking with you. Get out of here. You're gonna get bit.
I'm coming, please don't.
Get out of here. You're gonna get
coming. I'm coming.
No. Bust
I
that.
don't have a gun.
Fuck you. Come here. Show me your hands. Here.
That was the body cam footage of the incident, and I've cut it short because the rest is unimportant to this story. If you want to see the full video, a link to it and all of my sources is in the description below. Now let's take a look at how this incident and the behavior of the cop have been presented to the public by corporate media.
At Mark and Whitney, on February 12th, Spokane police arrested this man, 29-year-old Lucas Ellerman. Before his arrest, police already knew about his list of... At Mark and Whitney, on February 12th, Spokane police arrested this man, 29-year-old Lucas Ellerman. Before his arrest, police already knew about his list of felony convictions and a recent ammunition purchase. So when officers responded to the chase Ellerman led them on, he was considered armed and dangerous. Spokane police released this body camera video of Lucas Ellerman's arrest today. But shortly after his arrest last winter, complaints were filed claiming the arrest was excessively violent. The Spokane Police Department was already conducting a use of force review of the arrest, but the complaints prompted an internal affairs investigation.
This incident involved two officers trying to apprehend a subject they knew was a multi-time convicted felon, that they had good reasonable information and reason to believe he was armed with a handgun.
The Spokane Police Department identified the officers involved as Dan Lesser and Scott Lesser. This is Officer Dan Lesser's body camera capturing the arrest. He started recording after Ellerman's truck crashed into a snowbank and police pinned him there.
We're at Carnahan and 4th, trying to pin him in. He's in a car smoking.
After Officer Dan Lesser smashes open the passenger window, he hears the suspect say he has a pistol. That's when police sent the canine into the cab of the truck and attacked Ellerman. Police eventually drug him out and searched him for weapons. We learned from police today officers never found a gun at the scene.
Seriously, dude, I about shot you. Why'd you tell me you had a gun for? So you shot me. Why? Why do you want to die?
Results from the department's internal investigation determined the officer's use of force was within its policy. However, Captain Tom Hendren says they determined a mix of Officer Lesser's demeanor and profanity was not according to policy.
Were they acceptable in the sense of how we want our officers to act? No. But from a standpoint of law, he wasn't doing this with the intent to intimidate or harass. He was doing this with the intent to de-escalate and not have this subject provoke him into deploying deadly force.
Now, Chief Craig Meidel says consequences for Officer Dan Lesser violating the department's policy for his demeanor will be decided this week. Amanda Rowley, Krem 2 News.
After you've heard how corporate media just seems to regurgitate what the police PR department says about the incident and not ask any tough questions, I'm going to read from an excerpt in an article by Krem 2 News as to why Officer Lesser used the language and threats he used in addition to deploying his canine. I mean, we all saw clearly the suspect following commands and returning to the front of the seat when the dog was released. Now here's what Lesser says about his actions. A report from Krem 2 News states, according to the IA report, Lesser said he believed Ellerman was armed and he didn't want to go back to prison. Lesser said he used this language to disrupt what he called observed, orient, decide, act, according to the report. Lesser later explains that disrupting Ellerman's observed, orient, decide, act is a de-escalation technique, the report states. So, he has to observe something, orientate himself to it, and then he has to decide to act, Lesser explained during the interview. Yes, the language was rough and coarse. I don't do it all the time, but I felt I had to step up my game and get him to think about something else. And I'm also required by law that I have to give a warning if force is going to be used. Then later on in that same article, he goes on to talk about the fact that he feels like he should have actually shot the suspect, and I'm just going to read that. I've been involved in critical incidents in the past, and I'm not quite sure why I didn't shoot him when I probably should have, but I chose not to at the time. Guys, no wonder we have order followers killing civilians at the slightest provocation with no patience or understanding for what the suspect is going through. I mean, who on earth, other than an order follower of these enforcement divisions or one of the evil people coming up with these de-escalation techniques, thinks yelling, "I'm going to effing kill you" or "I'm going to put a bullet in your brain" is a way to de-escalate the situation. I'll agree that making lethal and violent threats like the ones made are probably a fairly effective way to gain compliance, but certainly they're not a good way to de-escalate a situation. Guys, it's time we all step outside of our programming that authority figures and the governments they work for are good and righteous, and start questioning things like this. More than that even, not just questioning these tactics that our own common sense should tell us is not okay. We need to start demanding from our servants better behavior and techniques. Instead, we let them extort our money to develop new and strengthen the techniques such as this one, which are already geared towards compliance. Please, my friends, share this video with everyone you know and start having conversation with all of your friends about these unacceptable practices before they affect your life too. Remember, if you don't stand up to injustices now when they don't affect you, there'll be nobody left to stand up for you against this tyranny when it does affect you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like button and share it with everyone you know. Find us on Twitter as well as censorship-free platforms like BitChute and Steemit or DTube. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to smile at someone you don't know every day.